Welcome to the grave of John F. Kennedy, parts of his family, and the Eternal Flame. The John F. Kennedy Eternal Flame Presidential Memorial is one of the centerpieces of the Arlington National Cemetery, and it pays honor to one of the most famous of all U.S. presidents. Before going into detail about the memorial itself, I want to give you a summary of the man this site is dedicated to, John F. Kennedy. John Fitzgerald Kennedy, or JFK for short, was born in 1917 in Brookline, Massachusetts. John was the second son of Joseph P. Kennedy and Rose Fitzgerald, whose father was a prominent Boston politician. JFK, however, did not become a politician right away. After his studies, which included several public and private schools, and an international affairs degree from Harvard, John volunteered for the U.S. Army during the Second World War. He served several years in the U.S. Navy, first in office and then later on the field, where he took part in several missions in the Pacific. John's older brother, Joseph Jr., was the one who was supposed to carry the family's political traditions on. However, Joseph served as a pilot during the Second World War and was killed during one of his missions. Joseph's death was one of the reasons John decided to get involved in politics. John quickly became a successful politician and tried to become the Democratic Party's choice for vice president during the election of 1956. He failed, but decided to run for president himself 4 years later. This time, he was successful, and he became the 35th U.S. president, after beating Richard Nixon in one of the closest presidential races of the 20th century. John F. Kennedy was a strong believer in civil rights, which came to shape his domestic and foreign policies. He is also known for his famous speeches. During his inaugural address, he delivered the legendary, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country." Kennedy was the president in a very tough era. He was facing the Cold War with the newly erected Berlin Wall, the Vietnam War, and the Cuban Missile Crisis. He was also president during the ongoing race to space, where he said, "We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard." On November 22, 1963, President Kennedy was shot and killed in an open limousine during a parade on a campaign trip to Dallas. Lee Harvey Oswald, an employee of the school book depository from which the shot was suspected to have been fired, was arrested and charged with the assassination of Kennedy. He denied shooting anyone and claimed he was set up. Before any trials could be held, Oswald himself was shot at point-blank range and killed during the move to a high-security prison. The motives for all these shootings are still to a large extent unknown. After Kennedy's death, many believed he would be buried in the state of Massachusetts, as it was the common practice that former presidents were buried in their home states. Jacqueline Kennedy, however, had a wish that he should belong to the people. With this, the possibility of placing Kennedy at Arlington National Cemetery was investigated. Arlington seemed the perfect choice, as it is one of the largest cemeteries in the U.S., where hundreds of thousands of people who also gave their life for their country are buried. 3 sites within the cemetery were considered, and the final choice fell on the sloping area below Arlington House. The grave of Kennedy is directly aligned with the Memorial Bridge and the Lincoln Memorial. JFK's funeral was also modeled after Abraham Lincoln's funeral, after a wish by Jacqueline Kennedy. Both were 2 great presidents, and both were assassinated. It was also his wife's wish to place the eternal flame on the grave, a flame you can still see burning today. The flame was inspired by the French tomb of the unknown soldier under the Arch of Triumph in Paris, which the Kennedys had visited earlier in 1961. The planners who were organizing the funeral granted her request immediately and rushed to implement it. Overnight, the engineers ran a gas line to the planned gravesite, fed by propane tanks from a distance. The state funeral was held on November 25th, 1963, with several heads of state attending. At the end of the burial ceremony, Jacqueline Kennedy lit the flame with a lighted taper. About a month after it was lit, the flame was extinguished when a Catholic school group visiting the site poured, rather than sprinkled, holy water directly onto the flame. The burner of today prevents accidents like this from happening. It is especially designed by the Institute of Gas Technology of Chicago. It consists of a continuously flashing electric spark near the tip of the nozzle, which instantly relights the gas if the flame should ever be extinguished by rain, wind, or accident. The fuel is natural gas and is mixed with a controlled quantity of air to achieve the color and shape of the flame. If you look at the grounds, you can see JFK's burial plaque in the ground together with his wife next to him. On the far sides, you can also see two smaller plaques. These are for the two Kennedy children, who were also buried on the site. One of them, a son, was born 5.5 weeks prematurely and died 2 days later. The other, a daughter, was dead at birth. The burial site quickly became crowded after it opened to the public, as many people wanted to visit the grave of their newly lost president. During the first year, often as many as 3,000 people an hour visited the Kennedy gravesite, and on weekends, an estimate of 50,000 people visited the grave. This led to the construction of a gravesite more suitable for visitors, with a paved area surrounding the graves. The area was paved with the regular stone of Cape Cod granite, stone which had been quarried at a site near the president's home in Brookline. Close to the JFK Eternal Flame, you can find the grave sites of John's brothers, Robert and Edward Ted Kennedy. Robert F. Kennedy, a senator who was also assassinated during a run for presidency, is buried about 100 feet away from the Eternal Flame, and their brother Ted, a longtime senator, is buried another 100 feet further away. Over the years, the JFK Eternal Flame has been visited by millions of people. It has become a symbol for John F. Kennedy and what he stood for. The memorial has been the official postage stamp with a picture of the flame together with the text, "And the glow from that fire can truly light the world." The phrase was delivered during Kennedy's inaugural address by John himself, a man whose own fire burned and still burns to light the world.